It started with the pastor of our parish. He was a diocesan priest. I grew up in Southern California. His name was Father Dan Kilty, lovingly referred to as a group of Irish priests that came over, FBIs, foreign-born Irish. He was a wonderful, wonderful man, a wonderful priest, joyful, prayerful, just a great guy. We loved him. My whole family, the parish loved this man. He was just held in very, very high regard. And as a kid in grade school, I wanted to be like him. I wanted to do the kind of things that he did. He was really the beginning of my vocation. A little later on, I became aware of the Vincentians, especially their desire to help the poor, which is a desire I've had since I was a little kid, to help those who were worse off than I was. I knew the couple. She was beautiful blonde. He was kind of a short, stocky, man's man kind of thing. She was about 8.5 months along. And she just went in for it. They had 2 children already. She didn't feel much movement within her womb, within her stomach, but she didn't think much of it. All kinds of things can happen when you're pregnant. She went in to get a regular doctor's appointment, and the doctor told her that the baby had died in her womb. It just so happens that I was on duty at the time when they induced labor, and I went into the ER room, and she was lying flat on the table. He was standing next to her holding the deceased baby in his arms. And I must have been 2-3 hours I was with him. I just held her hand and put my arm around him, the husband, and we cried together. We prayed together. Didn't really talk much at all, mostly crying and praying. And it's funny how this comes back emotionally. After so many years, this happened in the 90s. But it taught me how fragile life was, how very fragile life was. And it's an experience I call to mind every so often when I get in a situation where I'm really overwhelmed and there's a certain craziness, and it's like, life is too fragile to get involved in things that really don't matter much. Our understanding is that God has a purpose for us. And how God normally speaks to us is in and through our emotions, our feelings. So to me, the key place to start is with our emotional life. Deep down inside, what purpose is God calling me to? What are those deep down feelings that I have that are going to fulfill my desires as I move out into life and choose some type of work? In terms of being a Vincentian, I would say it involves a deep sense of wanting to be there for the poor and for the poor, especially to empower the poor, which is one of the things I like about being a Vincentian. I would say go out to a thrift store or to a home where they're caring for people, or even somebody on the street. Befriend them, get to know them, ask them some questions. How do you feel inside when you're there with the poor? Does that feel right for you to want to spend the rest of your life ministering to those who are like the breadcrumbs of society that most people just walk by and neglect, or they're like crumbs? You just brush them aside. They mean nothing. But rather, you've discovered a sense of compassion for them. One of the things I like about the Vincentians is that they were there to try to empower the poor to help themselves break out of their own poverty. So, yeah, pay attention to that inner world, those inner emotions that you have.